I have another speech to give. Not really. It's my pleasure, and it really is, to introduce our keynote presenter. Actually, this is the first time I've ever been in a meeting where the keynote comes last. But I think in this case, it's going to be great. I know it will. Sonia Nieto was born and raised in New York. She is a professor emerita of language, literacy, and culture. It's not much. The School of Education at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She's taught at all levels, so she's got a lot of practical experience. And I'd like to just tell you the titles of 2 or 3 or 4 of her books. Because I think what they tell a lot about her and the passion that she brings to her work. I just love it. Yeah. Affirming diversity, the light in their eyes, language, culture, and teaching, what keeps teachers going. And one of my favorites is Another Inconvenient Truth, Race Matters. So she has received an enormous number of awards, and one of the things that she's one of my heroes, because one of the things that I value so much are academics like Wade, like Jackie, and like Sonia, who are first-class scholars, but who also work on the work, if you will, who do the work on the ground. So she's received awards from the American Education Research Association, the Center for Applied Linguistics, the National Association for Multicultural Education, the Annenberg Institute, the National Council of Teachers of English. So she is not only an ardent advocate for good teaching, but as I think you will see in a few moments, she is herself a great teacher.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here. We don't have too many of these events where we honor teachers, and they're my favorite kinds of events. By the way, that Inconvenient Truth was co-authored with Bill, and I loved working with him. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about honoring these wonderful teachers. So we're here on this beautiful afternoon to celebrate 5 teachers: Silvestre Arcos of the Bronx, New York; Sonia Galavis of Nampa, Idaho; Katie Lacroix of Ann Arbor, Michigan; Amber Strong Macayao of Oahu, Hawaii; and Tracy Oliver Gary of Burtonville, Maryland. But today isn't only a celebration of these exceptional teachers, it's equally a celebration of all teachers who embody excellence, who believe in public education, who love their students, who are passionate about social justice, who are adamant about the craft of teaching, who are excited by learning, and who are devoted to the profession. In this era of teacher bashing and unparalleled surveillance of teachers, Silvestre, Sonia, Katie, Amber, and Tracy remind us why teaching is more consequential today than ever, and certainly more important than almost any other profession in a society that claims to cherish the democratic ideals of justice and fair play. What does it take to be an outstanding teacher of students of diverse backgrounds? I think we can all agree that to be an outstanding teacher of any student, it takes a combination of love for their students and the subject matter they teach, a commitment to excellence, a love of learning, passion, energy, perseverance, humility, and of course, a great dose of humor to even attempt to do all these things. This is a tall order for a profession that pays new teachers an embarrassingly low salary and yet expects them to know everything, to put in long hours, to buy supplies with their own money, to continue their professional development, often on their own time and with their own money, and to be teacher, parent, counselor, nurse, and confidant all in one. But this is what we expect of all teachers. What makes teachers of students of diverse backgrounds different? In some ways, this is a moot question because today, all teachers are or soon will be teachers of students of diverse backgrounds. Most of the classrooms in our nation today are diverse in some combination of race, ethnicity, native language, gender, of course, sexual orientation, social class, ability, religion, national origin, and other differences. But that doesn't mean that all teachers know how to be culturally responsive. In fact, while over 40% of students in our public schools are other than white, English-speaking, and middle class, in too many cases, prospective teachers are prepared as if they were going to be teaching the students of 50 years ago. Another reality is the fact that most teachers, specifically about 83%, are white, monolingual, English-speaking, and middle class. And most importantly, few have had either personal or professional experience with diversity. On top of that, a number of surveys have found that most of them feel unprepared to teach today's students, particularly language minority students and those with special needs. Even more troubling is the fact that many prospective teachers expect and want to teach in schools such as the ones they attended as children. That is, white middle-class schools with English-speaking children. Yet this is far from the reality that will happen, because these are precisely the teachers who will be teaching our increasingly diverse student population. As an aside, while it's true that our schools are more diverse than ever before, our population has always been diverse, and schools have always been hard-pressed to effectively teach students whose backgrounds differ from the majority. In my elementary school in Brooklyn, for example, we were Puerto Rican, African American, and European immigrants, and we spoke languages as varied as Spanish, Italian, and Yiddish. And yet we were all treated to a curriculum that featured Dick and Jane characters who lived with two parents and a dog in a suburban home with neatly clipped lawns in a kind of never-never-land that we had not experienced. Needless to say, it was difficult for many of us to connect with this kind of curriculum. At a time when there were 250,000 Puerto Rican students in the New York City public schools, there was no mention of Puerto Ricans in my classrooms until I was in junior high. And even then, the reference was to the island of Puerto Rico that most of us had visited, if at all, only infrequently. There was no mention of the bodega, our local Latino grocery stores, or of the foods we ate, the music we listened to, or the way we lived. There was, in fact, a profound silence about these things and a gaping separation between home and school. This is the chasm that culturally responsive teachers attempt to bridge. To be a culturally responsive teacher, in addition to all the critical attributes I listed above, is to learn who their students are, to honor students' identities rather than try to erase them, to make connections with families, to have high expectations in spite of the conventional wisdom about their students' abilities, and to provide a robust curriculum that gives them options in life. Mary Ginley, a former student of mine and a gifted teacher, she was actually Massachusetts Teacher of the Year about 12 years ago, recently retired after 42 years of teaching. And she put it best in a journal entry she wrote for one of my classes many years ago. She wrote, "Our responsibility is to meet them where they are and to take them someplace else, and have them carry who they are along with them." While many teachers are good at meeting their students where they are and taking them someplace else, it takes a culturally responsive teacher to encourage students to carry who they are along with them. For me, this is a perfect definition of a culturally responsive teacher. It is a person who acknowledges and affirms students' identities while at the same time offering them a range of dreams and possibilities through an inclusive, demanding curriculum. This is hard work, as has been mentioned before, and our awardees exemplify how it's done. I'm going to use the words that our award winners used in their applications and in the powerful video that you saw about them to illustrate some of the traits of culturally responsive teaching. I want to focus this afternoon on 5 such traits, although I could talk about 10 or 15 or 20 of them. The 5 are honoring the essence of family, exemplifying a commitment to lifelong learning, engaging in critical self-reflection, insisting on high quality and excellent work from all students, and valuing home language and culture. The issue of family comes up in the work of all of our awardees. Family means many things to them. It means regularly communicating with the families of their students, respecting and admiring them, and learning from them. It also means creating a sense of family in the classroom. Sonia Raquel Galaviz, a fifth grade teacher in Napa, Idaho, visits the families of her students before the beginning of the school year because she says it's important to understand each child well so that she knows how to teach them, him or her. Her school serves the families with the lowest socioeconomic status and the highest English language learning population in the district. As she wrote in her application, quote, "Building relationships is at the heart of my pedagogy. I do everything I can to value who they are, where they come from, and what they have to offer. From before they step through my classroom door, they know that I am their advocate, first and foremost in every area of their life. It is my commitment to love, support, and give them my very best as I would want for my own two children, Max and Mackenzie." Further, she writes, "The goal is to connect the curriculum to their lives, give them opportunities to share their work, develop authentic ways for them to use language and culture to uplift, and create deeper connections between the school day and class projects to the home and family." Consequently, her students refer to her classroom as a family, and she says that her students smile each time she tells them, quote, "I'm the mama." A commitment to lifelong learning is also evident in each of these teachers. Katie Lacroix, a fourth and fifth grade teacher in Ann Arbor, Michigan, has seemingly boundless energy, and much of it is related to her continued learning. She's an equity team leader, and she's been involved in professional development activities on topics as varied as technology, writing, math, and culturally relevant teaching. She has studied and used the materials from Teaching Tolerance and the Teaching Diverse Students Initiative of the Southern Poverty Law Center, another reason we liked her so much. Through these materials, she says, Katie has learned a lot about culture, and at the same time she says, quote, "I am careful not to generalize because what works for one student of a particular culture may not be true for all students of that cultural background. As a teacher, I make it my responsibility to decipher what works best instructionally for each student." Katie also knows how to broach sensitive issues with her students in a way that's both educational and non-threatening. Rather than shy away from topics that other teachers might want to avoid, Katie describes how she uses teachable moments to challenge stereotypes and racist attitudes and behaviors. For example, she uses read-alouds about children from diverse backgrounds to get her fourth grade students talking about race and racial issues. Katie also continues her professional development by learning in and from the community, by attending such activities as Japanese Saturday schools, basketball games, student performances, birthday parties, and other events in which her students are involved. Most significant, her own commitment to learning is communicated to her students. She has seen impressive growth among them in writing, where all of her students but one met or exceeded the state standards. She spent the rest of the year working one-on-one with that one child to help bring him up to speed. In reading, all of her students have moved up at least 2 reading levels over the course of just a year. But as she writes, "The most profound data that I have of my students' learning is through my informal dialogue with them and when I notice light bulbs going off in their heads during instructional times. That is profound evidence." Another trait of these teachers is how they engage in critical self-reflection. They realize that before they can create a learner-centered curriculum, they need to figure out who they are and where they fit into the picture. The work of Amber Strong Macayao is a case in point. Teaching in a tremendously multi-ethnic and multiracial school with a high percentage of Native Hawaiian students in Oahu, Hawaii, Amber teaches classes in philosophy and ethnic studies. Although she has a doctorate in culturally responsive teaching, learning is not over for her. She says, "I am continually learning what it means to be a culturally responsive educator. A huge part of this journey has been learning more about myself. Over the past 10 years, I have self-reflected, engaged in critical friendships with my co-teachers, and learned alongside my students so that I can better understand the cultural lens that I come to the classroom with." This kind of critical self-reflection is crucial, especially for teachers whose backgrounds differ from those of their students. Her ethnic studies course, which, by the way, she collaborated with administrators to make a required course for graduation, It helps promote a healthy school climate. Amber understands that unless students feel a strong connection to school, they will feel marginalized from the learning process. In both her ethnic studies and philosophy classes, she works to create a learner-centered curriculum, which she describes in this way. Students are the source of cultural knowledge in the classroom. This implies that questions come from the students. Topics of study are based on the students' interests. Texts, course materials, and resources are based on the unique characteristics of my students, she says. And most importantly, the students' personal backgrounds and voice are seen as a rich resource during discussions and projects. She also describes how she uses literature to initiate philosophical discussions, which aim toward the native Hawaiian practice of ho'oponopono, or making it right in the classroom community and beyond. Finally, in her application, Amber quoted students from an article in the school's newspaper concerning the ethnic studies course. One student said, "This class is cool because we're able to discuss any topic concerning culture or race. It's safe to discuss things here and voice your opinion. It's a freedom that we don't really have in other classes." Another student said, "Students will leave with an appreciation of other cultures. That's something that you can't take away from someone." And yet, unfortunately, this is exactly what happens in too many classrooms around the country, as students of diverse backgrounds are required to drop their native language, and sometimes even punished if they use it, and to hide their ethnic culture, their sexual orientation, or other difference. Fortunately for us and for students, the outcome in Amber's classroom is quite different. Amber quotes a student who wrote about her experience in the class in these words: "I blossomed into something more. My growth increases every day. I am a girl that honors all of my family's names. I am a proud leader, and I am Hawaiian." A fourth trait that is unmistakable in all of these teachers is their insistence on high quality and excellent work from their students. Tracy Oliver Gary is a high school teacher of open enrollment AP classes in world history in Burtonsville, Maryland. Her school includes students of Korean, South Asian, African, Latino, European American, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, and Christian backgrounds. Because she says she felt ill-prepared to meet the learning needs of such a diversity of students in open enrollment advanced placement classes, she began to take classes in culturally responsive teaching strategies. This year, half of her students are new to AP and are first and second generation Americans from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Since many of her students lack traditional AP skills when they first enter her classroom, she uses differentiation and cooperative learning strategies extensively, and she builds on scaffolding strategies into each of her lessons. As part of her approach to demand nothing but the best from them, Tracy teaches her students formal academic language and reading comprehension strategies. She continues her demand for rigor with a deep level of caring for her students. She writes, "My passion in life is teaching, not because I love history, although it's clear that she does, but because I get the opportunity to help a young person figure out who he is and what type of world citizen he wants to become. Early in my career, I figured out that when my students believed that I genuinely cared for their well-being, they performed well in class and did their homework." It is this combination of high standards and caring that is too often missing from the standards movement, an important lesson we can learn from Tracy. Valuing home culture and language is the final trait I want to highlight this afternoon. Silvestre Arcos works in the South Bronx, the poorest congressional district in the nation, where 96% of his students in the middle school where he works qualify for free or reduced lunch. But he doesn't let this fact keep him down. In fact, it spurs him on. He holds monthly family meetings, and 100% of the parents attend the quarterly parent-teacher conference. An incredible feat where the conventional wisdom is that poor and immigrant families don't care about education. He creates a sense of community in his classroom by calling it a team. For example, he has taught in the summer program for the past 4 years, not only to have his students catch up with basic math, but also, as he writes, so that all students come back in September loving school. He has All his dual language students participate in a week-long orientation and community bonding experience. He encourages them in both direct and subtle ways to aim toward college, saying, quote, once they have shown a strong community, they will have earned the homeroom name Cornell, my alma mater. Sylvester's valuing of language and culture is also evident in his instrumental role in helping to change the bilingual program at his school from a transitional or subtractive model where students used the native language only until they learned enough English to be so-called mainstream, to dual immersion or an additive model where students who speak a native language other than English and English speakers are in the same classroom, learning through both languages and where both languages are equally important. Silvestre attempts to use culture in all of his lessons, but he does not limit himself to only the culture of his mostly Latino students. As he wrote in his application, some of my favorite examples are using tortillas to discover pie during Pie Day, creating an altar for Dia de los Muertos, and participating in the Three Kings Day Parade organized by the Museo del Barrio. We've also used a dreidel to graph probability around Hanukkah, as we use artifacts from cultures that are not represented in the classroom. Of course, every teacher uses culture in all of their lessons too, but often, if they're from the majority culture, they're unaware of this fact. It's like the fish in the fishbowl that's in water but may be unaware of that fact because that's simply its environment. The difference with culture-responsive teaching is that this kind of teaching is done with students whose language and culture are often invisible in the curriculum. It is purposeful, and it's done with a specific goal in mind: to affirm who students are in order to have them connect with school, accept and relish who they are, and succeed academically. Lest we think that all of this is just touchy-feely stuff, Silvestre told us that last year 97% of his math students in 6th and 7th grade earned a grade of proficiency on the state math test compared to only about 35% of the students in the district. As a result, Middle School 223 was named an Intel School of Distinction. As Silvestre said with utmost conviction, the students are going to get there. For him, there's no doubt about this, and with a teacher such as Silvestre, we can be pretty sure that he's right. So these then are the teachers who we honor tonight. And they have important insights for us as teachers, teacher educators, policymakers, and the general public. If we truly care about public education, if we believe that all students deserve the chance to dream, if we're honest about the United States being the land of opportunity, we have to do better. And we can start by learning from teachers such as Silvestre, Tracy, Amber, Katie, and Sonia. In this era of high-stakes testing and rigid accountability, they remind us that some things simply cannot be measured. They also make it clear that they need support from administrators, families, and policymakers, as well as fellow teachers, to be successful and creative in their classroom. They need the time to reflect, to forge deep relationships with their students, and to continue learning their craft. Yet these things are hard to come by these days. The discourse around education has become mean-spirited and narrow. Rather than talk about love, relationships, integrity, equity, and high standards, we talk about standardization, AYP, rubrics, templates, and tests. Something seems terribly wrong. We're here to celebrate and honor these 5 teachers, but we should also pause to acknowledge that no teacher can do it alone. While our society remains unequal, providing few resources to the students who need them the most, blaming students and teachers for the failure of students to learn, we'll continue to have what is called the achievement gap. And I don't call it the teaching gap. Actually, I prefer to call it the resource gap, the opportunity gap, and the caring gap. Until we demonstrate that we care for all our students, until we honor teaching as the noble profession it is meant to be, even such exemplary teachers as Silvestre, Tracy, Katie, Amber, and Sonia will have a hard time with it. Let me conclude by saying that it was a privilege for me to read the applications of those from around the country who were considered for this award. It gave me a great sense of pride and the faith that our schools can become a beacon of hope for students who sorely need it. There are many excellent teachers who we need to honor, and Tracy, Katie, Sylvester, Sonia, and Amber are among the best. Reading their applications took my breath away. We're so fortunate to have them teaching our children. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for talking about culturally relevant pedagogy in such a personal and heartfelt way. Would you join me on the stage as
Sure.
we bring back our awardees? On stage. I'd like to just have a final round of applause for our awardees, and also I want to thank Bill and Sonia and Jackie, who were on the committee that reviewed the applications, and I'm inspired by them. Would you join me? Thank you.
Thank you all. What a terrific day. Thanks for a terrific day of celebration and inspiration. I wanted to say goodbye to our online audience real quickly there. Thank you for joining and bringing your questions to us. Everyone online here in the room can find out many more resources and other information at edweek.org/TM. Or just go to edweek.org and click on that upper nav there that says teacher. It'll take you right here. These resources are terrific and these videos are amazing. I hope that you'll be able to share them with your colleagues and get that word out that these are here and these resources will be shared and expanded upon in the months and days to come, weeks and months to come. Quick reminder, I would like you all to fill out your evaluation form, as you know. Very helpful. You can either leave it here in the room or again at the registration desk. For those of us who are in the room, we're going to be doing a wine and cheese reception downstairs at the 9th floor where you came in. So I want to encourage you all to continue the networking and the friend making and create the new resources here in this room that you'll be able to take elsewhere. I did want to just say one thing. There was a comment that was made today that I hope inspired you as much as it inspired me. That these are excellent examples of extraordinary teachers doing exceptional things. Thank you, Wade. I thought that was fantastic. Let's make the extraordinary more ordinary. And I thought that was just so inspirational. There were so many things that were inspirational here. Let's share them with each other down in the reception. Have a great time. Thank you so much for celebrating teaching tolerance.